Due Process, winner of 10 Emmys, including a 2007 Mid-Atlantic Emmy for in-depth reporting.
People may not even know what a civil union is. They know what a marriage is.
They know what marriage is, but you come up and say, well, we have a civil union. Okay, what's that?
They've been a couple for 16 years, and since last year, they've been partners under the law. But civil unions, they say, don't cut it. What they want is to be legally married, and California's given them new hope. Gay marriage in New Jersey. Is it inevitable? That's next on Due Process.
Major funding for Due Process provided by the New Jersey State Bar Foundation, committed to educating the public about the law, and by the Fund for New Jersey, supporting informed citizens for an effective democracy. Additional funding provided by Lawyer's Diary and Manual and online legal reference, elaw.com.
Massachusetts isn't alone anymore. They've lined up to get married on the West Coast, too, now that California's High Court has said yes to gay marriage, unions that New York's governor says he'll recognize. I'm Raymond Brown, and on the docket for this edition of Due Process, what's next for same-sex unions in New Jersey? We'll hear passionate arguments from both sides of the issue, but first, with one couple's story, here's Sandra King.
Raymond, who would have thought just a few years ago that New Jersey would be debating whether civil unions go far enough? Less than 2 years ago, the court here ruled, but it was 8 years before that two blue-collar guys sent out invitations to a wedding they never dreamed might someday be legal. Their traditional wedding album is just one sign that they challenge all the stereotypes. He's a security guard. He drives a truck. They've been together for 16 years, and they even go to church on Sundays. In fact, 10 years ago, their wedding was in church, a religious family event that carried no legal status or standing.
It was important to us for our kids to show them that we were making a commitment together.
To show our families that this is who we are. And so we just made up our minds we were going to do it. And that was it, and never thinking anything else would come of it.
Then came New Jersey's domestic partnership law, and they signed up.
Certainly New Jersey has declared these relationships constitutional. I mean, we had a domestic partnership before that court case.
And then in October 2006, the state Supreme Court's landmark ruling that forced open the door to civil unions.
We were very much surprised. It was like, oh my God.
And what were supposed to be all the rights and privileges and responsibilities of marriage.
The court said that we have decided the state constitution guarantees that every statutory right and benefit conferred to heterosexual couples through civil marriage must be made available to committed same-sex couples.
Marriage in everything but name.
The Supreme Court left in the hands of the legislature what to call it. And in order to get this bill passed, it was agreed that it was going to be called civil unions.
And Tom Walton and Merman Davis were among the 7,000 gay couples who stepped up to claim those rights.
It was supposed to be the same benefits as marriage, but not called marriage.
Right.
And that's where the problem stands.
Only to find out just what is in a word.
You can't say that people should be considered equal, but yet still calling them by different names and different legal constructs, and then wash your hands and think everything will be okay. There are a number of ways in which the civil unions have clearly fallen short.
The realization that separate may not be equal came when Tom put Merman on his UPS health plan. And UPS said, "You're not married."
You said I have a civil union.
Right.
They said,
And they said that's, yeah, it's...
congratulations.
Yeah, that's nice, yeah.
But it's not a marriage.
It also doesn't say the word spouse
Yes.
in the wording either. It was civil union partner.
Yes.
There's a mouthful for you,
Yes.
Civil union, the company said, was not marriage. So although they granted spousal benefits in Massachusetts, where gays have been allowed to marry for 4 years, New Jersey was a different story.
And it's all a matter of one word?
Marriage.
Yes.
Yep.
That's the big
Yep.
word.
And that was the issue with UPS.
Yes.
But Tom filed an appeal, and the governor got involved, telling UPS that the law requires equal treatment.
Just wanted what the state told us we were going to be getting.
Yeah.
We just wanted to be treated the same and get, be able to put him on my benefits.
And UPS did quickly comply. But gay advocates say that the case underscored how civil unions fall short.
From the bar's perspective, civil unions are a failed experiment. They have been shown to perpetuate an unacceptable second-class legal status.
So the legislator who sponsored the civil union bill now wants to try again for gay marriage.
Lots of people don't understand what a civil union is. Everybody understands what a civil marriage is.
Let the voters of New Jersey decide whether marriage is between a man and a woman, as has been tradition, or if they wanted to define it another way, they would say, no, that's not what the definition of marriage should be. I, quite frankly, think that they have it pretty good in the state of New Jersey right now. And I don't feel that it's right for either the judicial branch or the legislative branch to actually define what marriage is.
So this legislator has an opposing bill pending to amend the New Jersey Constitution. And she's not without support.
We've gotten 70,000 petitions statewide and are continuing the process of people saying that they do want to see marriage preserved as the union of one man and one woman.
And the push for a constitutional amendment here may be fueled by legalization last month of gay marriage in California.
What a day in San Francisco! What a day in California! What a day for America! What a day for equality!
And those marriages in California, Massachusetts, or even out of the country will be recognized in New York, following a new executive order from the state's new governor.
It is actually the correct action because it will bring our agencies in compliance with human beings who have gotten married and now just want the rights that married couples have.
They want to totally redefine marriage. So we think that it's going too far.
But Tom and Merman say that marriage is what they've got, even if the state won't call it that.
We have the rights and the benefits. We got the benefits from UPS, and we're married. We live a good life. We have good relationships with our families. But I think for the gay community as a whole, I think it would be a huge step.
But it has been a busy time for both sides on gay marriage. In California, the court may not have had the last word. A constitutional amendment is in the works there, too. And if it passes, all those marriages of recent weeks could be declared invalid. And in New York, the opposition's rallying, too, already filing a court challenge on the grounds that Governor Patterson has, quote, seized the legislature's authority and overridden the will of the people. Meanwhile, here in this state, the gay marriage bill has been put on hold, Raymond, until after November. The fear seems to be that pushing same-sex marriage now could swing the way things go in November.
Well, Sandy, we know for sure that in New York and in California, the issue of gay marriage is not resolved. There are future battles, and the question is whether either of those states or both together might be the Massachusetts of this election cycle.
Because neither party has forgotten 2004, when gay marriage became a real hot-button issue in the presidential campaign. Some people think it may have even swung the election to George Bush.
The question from McCain and Obama may be, how much is this going to play a role in their election hopes come next November? The politics of gay marriage and more here in the studio when we come back, so stay with us.
I feel practically as a Christian that the civil union way to go is absolutely right. But when we place marriage in the same category as defined by our Bible, it makes it very difficult for Christians to accept that.
I guess for legal purposes, would they both be the same?
I think that gay marriage is a good thing, and I'm actually from California originally, so when that passed, I was really excited.
I don't understand why we're behind in the times. I mean, to me, it's a non-issue. It's a person's choice.
As far as insurance and everything like that, I think they have the right to have the same benefits as straight couples do.
So it's still a subject that raises strong feelings, with neither side satisfied with the status quo. Demetrios Stratis, an attorney who works with both the Alliance Defense Fund and the New Jersey Family Policy Council, says same-sex unions have had too much recognition. But Stephen Goldstein, a student rabbi and chair of the gay rights group Garden State Equality, says civil unions were never more than a legal stopgap on the way to full marriage. And with us from Newark, Seton Hall professor of law Marc Poirier, a specialist in gender issues with an overview of marriage law and gay rights. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
Demetrios, let me start with you. In Sandy's report, we saw the mayor of San Francisco welcoming the California Supreme Court ruling. And as we'll see at the end of our show, he adds, this is really just the beginning, like it or not, of a march on the way to gay marriage around the country. Now, given how far we've come in 10 years, is he right or is he wrong about the future?
I disagree. I don't think he's right. I think civil unions, at least in the state of New Jersey and throughout the country, gives the same-sex couples exactly what they're looking for, and that was rights. They were looking to have the same rights, and that's what Lewis versus Harris did here in New Jersey. The Supreme Court said they are entitled to have the exact same rights as a heterosexual couple. Civil unions does exactly that. It gives them exactly the rights that heterosexual couples have.
So let me be clear that the movement with which you're associated is satisfied with civil union. It's not looking to roll that back, but is determined that we not go on to gay marriage.
The advocacy groups for same-sex couples want a marriage. But the point is to show their insincerity of what they really wanted. They started out asking for the same rights. And what they've done now is said it's not about the rights because we've already been given that. I know Stephen's shaking his head, but let me just clarify. Are you pushing to roll back civil unions as they exist now, or are you more focused on the question of whether marriage is the objective? Right now, we need to preserve marriage as between one man and one woman. You cannot redefine it. It's about procreation, and to change what the definition is, to transform it into something else is wrong. And that's why we need the amendments, the constitutional amendments, to preserve that.
Now, Stephen, I know you have a lot to say.
Chomping at the bit, Ray. It's really unbelievable. First of all, Demetrios, I have to say I'm thrilled that you've practically endorsed civil unions, because just 3-4 years ago, the right wing wouldn't even dream of letting us have even civil unions.
Let me pause you there, since you've made this historical reference. Yes. I'm sure there are some, maybe associated with Demetrios, maybe not, who would say, we have come a long way. For example, 2002, your picture appeared in the New York Times. It was the first gay marriage to be featured in the New York Times wedding page. Is that correct?
Yeah, but Raymond, civil unions are not working. The New Jersey civil union law is the biggest civil rights disaster in the history of this state.
That's a pretty broad claim.
Absolutely stand by it.
Worse than if we had nothing?
Let me tell you what the problem is. Employers are disrespecting the law left and right. They don't know what civil unions are. They have no clue. And it's not getting better with time, because in Vermont, which has had civil unions now for 8 years, a government commission there ruled that their law is not working. Things are not going to get better with the civil union law with time or education.
Raymond,
one standard.
How many formal complaints have actually been filed?
Hold on.
I'm happy to talk about it.
Let me just let Marc jump in. Marc, I know you wanted to respond. Go ahead.
Thanks. First of all, I think Mr. Stratis is off
From the very early days, the court cases have always been about marriage, and civil union and domestic partnership have been compromises, typically by legislatures which were told to do something but not necessarily marriage.
When they've compromised, Mark, what have they omitted that would be legal rights or protections that would be associated with marriage short of using the term?
Well, the problem, first of all, there are three kinds of problems. In 1996, the federal government enacted a definition of marriage as a man and a woman. That makes things terribly complicated, even in a state like Massachusetts or California. Second of all, because different states are now doing different things, there are interstate choice of law problems, which are complicated. But third and most, I mean, in all kinds of ways, you have an accident while you're traveling and the hospital says you're not related to that child or that partner, for example. But there are all kinds of things. And thirdly, frankly, marriage, it's part of language. You can't, I agree with Mr. Stratis, it is a redefinition. The claim is access to something which has traditionally been a man and a woman. It may be that the time has come to do that. But when you use a word with as much history and context as marriage, it brings with it kinship, instant recognition.
Mark, you've raised about 40 points. So
of course, I'm a law professor.
Let me try to get to two of them. One of them is, Demetrios, the question of whether, when Mark concedes to, we want to redefine it as a concept. Put aside some of the practical issues we're going to come to in a minute, Stephen. What's wrong with using the word in a way that provides maximum protection? What harm does it do to any heterosexual couple if we extend the use of the word to gay couples so that they're fully protected?
We shouldn't be asking the question, how does it affect my marriage? The question should be, how does it affect the future of society? How does it affect, and most importantly, our children?
How is it detrimental to the future of society?
A child, whenever a child is deprived of a mom and a dad, they're the ones that suffer. I don't think it takes anything but common sense to think that a child is going to thrive when the parents, mother and a father, are unified, they love each other, and they love the child. Which one is indispensable? I'd ask Stephen. Is it the mom that's indispensable, or is it the father that's indispensable?
Obscene. Letting gay couples marry will strengthen marriage. You have no proof that shows that letting gay couples marry will harm the institution of marriage. Demetrios, Massachusetts, which allows same-sex couples to marry, has the lowest divorce rate in this country. Canada, which allows same-sex couples to marry, has a divorce rate that is half of what we have in the United States.
The studies all show.
The studies all show, I go by statistics, not by some biased studies. The studies all show that you're wrong. You talk about impact on children, Demetrios. How would you like to be a child of same-sex parents and have your parents be given a different, inferior label? What harm does that do to those children? I'll tell you what harm that does. They're devastated by that inferior label. That's anti-family values.
What you're trying to do is redefine a marriage, redefine it to make it into something that it's not. It's about procreation.
And it is. So let me ask you, Demetrios, it's only about procreation. So let me ask you a question. Two people who are 75 years old, who have a second marriage, who cannot biologically procreate, they shouldn't marry, according to you?
They did at one point.
No, let's say they were never married.
Just a second. Mark, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
If we just restrict ourselves for the moment to this question of the use of the word marriage and what it means, do you see any way in which that issue gets resolved effectively state by state, or is it going to require either the United States Supreme Court to find a way into this or a constitutional amendment on the federal level, or can we really resolve that issue effectively state by state, which is the way the issue seems to be being fought out now?
Well, I agree with you. I think the issue is being fought out, and both sides with very strongly held positions are essentially playing capture the flag with the word marriage. And I don't think the Supreme Court's going to get hold of it. What will happen, I think, is that we will have a patchwork, and over the course of 20 or 30 years, people will probably get used to the idea, because I think the statistics show with Stephen that, in fact, the fears of society falling apart are simply unfounded. Now, marriage may be in trouble, but it's not because of same-sex.
Now, Stephen, there's an assemblywoman in Sandy's report who says, you guys have had it good here. Why do you want more? And do you think, in light of that sentiment, with apparently 70,000 signatures being collected, that you are going to get progress, for example, post-November, on a bill that recognizes marriage in New Jersey?
New Jersey is going to be the first state in the country that will enact marriage equality through legislation. Absolutely. And do you know why that is, Ray? Because most people don't hold the position of either me or Demetrios. Most people in the state actually don't care whether gay people marry. They care about their high property taxes.
Demetrios, what do you think? Do you agree?
I disagree. And I think the climate of the lawmakers now is to say, look, we've given you civil unions, we've given you the rights that you wanted, we've given you the rights that the Supreme Court has legislated or said that we need to give you. Marriage, we're stopping it there.
Actually, Ray, that's out of whole
Demetrios,
cloth.
if we had
Whole
an
cloth,
emperor instead
not
of a
true.
governor and you were emperor, would you roll us all the way back to before civil unions or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, you know that's not going to happen because you're losing the battle.
Let me ask you a practical question, Stephen, that I want the other guests to comment on because it was raised in Sandy's report.
Right.
The UPS situation that happened to the couple in that circumstance, is that common or not? That is that corporations, private corporations, are not recognizing what our legislature and our courts have intended civil unions to be?
It is very common, and I want to preempt a question that Demetrios
Well, no,
is going to bring
we
to,
can
because
ask
no, Demetrios is going to say, look at the number of complaints to government.
Well, have there been complaints?
Yeah, and you know, yes, let me tell you, the groups like mine have gotten more than 900 complaints. Why have there been only a handful of complaints, as Demetrios will tell you? Because the very heads of the government agencies will tell you, as they have publicly in newspapers, people don't even know we agencies exist
Demetrios,
to complain to.
What's your response on the commonality of the UPS situation like the one we
We're going through a transition phase. There's going to be some issues that come up, and we'll take them by a case-by-case basis.
You don't think it's common?
You
Absolutely
think it's
not.
common?
Absolutely
Marc,
not.
let me
There's
ask
only
you
been
this question,
7
Marc.
formal complaints.
Would it be a basis for further litigation in our state for someone to go back to the Supreme Court and said, given what's happening, if we have a large number of UPS-type situations where private corporations don't recognize the civil union and all of its manifestations, and say, listen, the legislature didn't live up to the requirements of your holding?
I think that has been left open in the Lewis versus Harris opinion. Yes, it could happen. You'd have to build some evidence for it.
Do you see anything in what you've heard that makes it likely that's going to happen, or do you think it's more likely that the legislature will move on to battling over the marriage question rather than further litigation about civil unions?
Oh, I think the stage is set for the legislature to address it one way or the other within the near future.
Hey, Raymond, one thing Demetrios said, he said legislators are saying that's enough. That's ridiculous in New Jersey. We're the only state where marriage for same-sex couples legislation has been endorsed by the Assembly Speaker, by the Senate President, and Governor Corzine says he'll sign that bill.
All right, let me ask Demetrios a practical question. You're affiliated with national organizations, not just New Jersey.
That's correct.
And how much do you think there are going to be national resources poured into New Jersey if, as Stephen says, New Jersey is going to be the next state to go, or at least to battle in the legislature about marriage?
Well, unfortunately, there are battles all over this country. We see what's happening with Governor Patterson, what he's done. He's unilaterally usurped.
And your group is also challenging his, which is an executive order and a more nuanced position. But let me come back to New Jersey for a moment. Given the lay of the national landscape, and at least the mayor of San Francisco saying the pins are falling in this direction, is New Jersey important in that landscape and likely to get national attention, whether it's post-November or not, in its battle in the legislature for gay marriage?
I believe it is. It's a very important state, and the people need an opportunity to be heard, and they're heard through their elected
Do you agree with
officials.
Stephen's assessment that there's a huge part of the body politic in the center that really doesn't care?
Do they care? I think they absolutely do care. They said, we've done what we can with civil unions, we've given you those rights under the civil union law, but that's enough. You cannot redefine what marriage is. Marriage, it's as if you have a square. A square is 4 equal sides. To say that I now have a triangle and I want to call it a square is wrong.
Let Marc in. Marc, go ahead.
Yes, marriage has shifted in many ways over the decades and centuries in this country. Marriage at one point was an extremely gender unequal relationship in which the woman lost all of her legal identity in marriage. That changed. That was a kind
Marc,
of
I got to ask you
redefinition.
for a 2-second answer. Is this going to be an issue in the upcoming presidential campaign?
I'm not a politician, certainly not in California, probably in Florida.
What do you think, Stephen? Do you sense that this will be anything approaching what Massachusetts was?
No way. The economy's to hell in a handbasket. That's what people care about.
So it's your view that this is going to be fought out completely state by state in the future?
State by state.
Demetrios, a different view about whether or not this may become an important issue in the presidential election that's coming up?
I wish it was, frankly, because it is an important issue. It's about the future of our children, most importantly, and
what's changed
procreation.
since 2004, where many people argue it was the make weight in the presidential election to now where the same issue seems to carry less gravitas?
People see through the gimmick. People see that couples like me and my partner should not be demonized when the economy in this country is doing so poorly.
I'm assuming, Demetrios, you have a different theory.
Yes.
What's your theory about why it's less important?
We're not trying to demonize anyone.
Sure.
Why do you think it's less important and less likely to turn the presidential election this time than it did 4 years ago when some people think it was the key?
I don't know that it will or won't. I really don't. But I think that people need to be heard. I think that people need to rise up and say, look, we need to stand up now. Enough is enough. They've made enough headway, but we need to do something about it. The only thing I can say enough about is at the end of this conversation, but one that I think is going to continue. Thank you all for being with us. Thanks specifically to Demetrios Stratis, Marc Poirier, and Stephen Goldstein. That's it for this edition of Due Process, but we'll be back here next week for another up-close look at law and social justice. Till then, for Sandra King and all of us here, I'm Raymond Brown. Thanks for watching.
This is an extraordinary moment and an extraordinary time. And by the way, as California goes, so goes the rest of the nation. It's inevitable. This door is wide open now. It's going to happen, whether you like it or not. This is the future, and it's now. Courts across this country, we're waking up.
Major funding for Due Process provided by the New Jersey State Bar Foundation, committed to educating the public about the law, and by the Fund for New Jersey, supporting informed citizens for an effective democracy. Additional funding provided by Lawyer's Diary and Manual and online legal reference, elaw.com.